We found fake facts in a video with 400,000 views. Facts we had invented ourselves during a test. Facts that had never existed anywhere until an AI made them up, and we caught them. We flagged them. We shelved the project, and then someone else published them. Confidently, at scale, to a massive audience. That was months ago. Those facts have now been indexed, cited, and folded into at least 3 other videos we've found so far. This is not a story about one bad video. This is a story about what happens when an error escapes containment, and there's no way to trace it back. Because something is quietly rotting at the foundation of the internet. And most people haven't noticed yet, because from the surface, it still looks fine. The slop epidemic. Here's a question worth sitting with. When did you last read something online and really feel, that it was written by a person who actually cared? The internet used to be chaotic, weird, deeply, sometimes embarrassingly human. Amateur reviews, personal rants, niche forums where someone would spend 3 hours explaining why a specific 1987 synthesizer changed their life. No one asked them to. They just needed to say it. Now the internet is efficient, frictionless, and increasingly hollow. AI-generated content has flooded every corner of the web. Not with a dramatic explosion, but with a slow, barely perceptible tide. Review sections, comment threads, news articles, YouTube channels pumping out video essays 3 times a week, synthetic voices reading scripts that sound almost right, almost human, about topics the channel has never actually cared about. Music on streaming platforms created by no one. Books on Amazon authored by nothing. LinkedIn has become a philosophical black hole. Short-form video is now engineered to be just stimulating enough to stop a child's thumb from scrolling. Not because someone built it with care, but because an algorithm optimized for engagement figured it out by accident. Right now, nearly half of all internet traffic isn't human, and the majority of those bots aren't doing anything useful. They're poisoning reviews, manufacturing fake engagement, quietly degrading every signal we use to figure out what's worth our time. What makes this particularly dangerous isn't the volume. It's the camouflage. AI slop doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with a warning label. It just quietly lowers the average until the average becomes the floor. And here's the part that genuinely stings. Every original YouTube video, every handwritten Reddit comment, every illustration someone posted because they loved making it, it was taken, scraped, fed into systems that now compete directly with the people who made it. No credit, no choice. Creative theft at a scale that's impossible to fight. Already putting real creators out of work. So AI companies can get rich. Why the platforms don't care. You might be wondering, why aren't the platforms doing something about this? The uncomfortable answer is, they don't have much reason to. The ad-supported business model that funds almost every major platform is built on one thing. Attention. Clicks, comments, time spent. It doesn't particularly matter whether that engagement is genuine or synthetic, because artificial engagement still gets sold to advertisers at full price. The click is the product. The platform profits either way. And before we place all the blame on AI, low-quality content is not a new invention. Human-written filler, recycled marketing copy, spun articles. These have cluttered the internet for years. AI hasn't created the problem. It's just removed every remaining speed bump on the road to the bottom. Some observers describe the major platforms as being in a kind of terminal phase, where the strategy of flooding feeds with artificial content isn't really about serving users anymore. It's about maintaining the appearance of a thriving, active community to keep advertisers spending. A simulation of life, engineered to look real from the outside. And it goes further than money. When people are relentlessly exposed to low-quality, emotionally manipulative, polarizing content, something happens to them. They become exhausted, cynical, disengaged. A population that feels overwhelmed and confused is less likely to participate in anything meaningful, civic life, community, even just sustained attention. Whether that outcome is engineered or simply a side effect, it's hard to argue it's accidental. Some people, facing all of this, have already made their decision. Leave. Walk away. The only winning move is not to play. And honestly, that's not an irrational response. Others believe the current internet, bloated and broken as it is, might eventually collapse under the weight of its own incoherence, and that something better might grow in the space left behind. We'd like to believe that's possible. But before we get there, we want to tell you what we actually found when we tested this ourselves. We tested AI. Here's what happened. We want to be honest with you about something. When AI research tools first appeared, we were genuinely excited. Making a well-researched video is slow work. Raw academic papers, primary sources, expert correspondence. Fact-checking alone runs to around 100 hours per video. The idea that we could compress any of that felt like finding a shortcut through a mountain. So we tested it. Properly. Not casually. Real trials across multiple projects over several months. We gave the major AI models a real research brief. We used a stand-in topic to walk you through it. Brown dwarfs, the failed stars of the cosmos. Objects too massive to be planets, not quite massive enough to ignite. Perpetually in between. Cosmically awkward. Results came back fast. Dense. Impressive looking. Dozens of pages. Detailed claims. Citations. Unique details we hadn't encountered before. Then we started checking. About 80% was solid. Traceable back to legitimate papers, verified sources, credible institutions. But the remaining 20%? The most interesting 20%? The surprising details that would have made a video genuinely memorable? We couldn't find any of it. We brought in experts. They flagged the same facts immediately. Asked where we'd found them. We hadn't found them anywhere. The AI had invented them. Not maliciously. There's no malice in a language model. But it filled the gaps between real facts with plausible-sounding extrapolations. Because that's what it's built to do. It wants to be useful. And if reality doesn't quite cooperate, it improvises. Then we dug into the sources it had cited. One was an article from a news site, bylined by a human journalist. Except it read like someone had lightly rephrased AI output. An AI detection tool flagged it at 72%. An AI article being used as a credible source for AI research. A citation pointing directly back at its own reflection. This isn't a fringe case. By 2025, over 1,200 confirmed AI-generated news sites were publishing at scale. Misinformation dressed up in bylines and datelines. We shelved the project. Rebuilt everything from scratch, the old-fashioned way. Then, weeks later, we came across a video. New channel. Hundreds of thousands of views. Solid production. And we recognized the structure. We recognized the rhythm. And there they were, every fabricated brown dwarf fact we had flagged, presented confidently, reaching a massive audience, getting indexed, getting cited, getting shared. This is how misinformation becomes history. Chapter 4. The deeper problem with AI confidence. Here's what makes this genuinely alarming. Beyond any one topic, any one video, any one mistake. AI, it doesn't lie the way humans lie. It doesn't know it's lying. It has no relationship with truth because it has no relationship with anything. It is an extraordinarily sophisticated pattern completion system, and it completes patterns even when the pattern leads off a cliff, because the cliff looks like the next logical step. What makes it dangerous is how credible it sounds. It's right often enough to feel authoritative. When it's wrong with complete confidence and fluent prose. And when you catch it, it apologizes sincerely, and then does it again 3 sentences later. There is no one home, no intelligence weighing evidence, no judgment deciding what to leave out. Just a very powerful function, turning inputs into outputs that statistically resemble truth. And we are giving it a seat at the table of human knowledge. Researchers have studied the language of scientific papers published before and after the rise of large language models. The findings are not subtle. There's a sharp, sudden spike in AI-favored vocabulary across academic literature. A significant portion of papers are now at least partially AI-generated, usually without disclosure. And in July 2025, it emerged that some researchers had embedded hidden prompts inside their academic papers. Text too small for the human eye. White text on white backgrounds. Instructions invisible to readers, directing AI peer review systems to evaluate their work favorably and overlook its weaknesses. The library of human knowledge is being quietly edited, and the edits don't leave a trace. Which brings us to the question everyone eventually asks. So what do we do? How we use AI and why it matters. We use tools. We're not romantic about it. We use AI the way you'd use the auto-align function in a design program. Not to replace thinking, but to remove friction from the parts that don't require it. Tidying up code, speeding up certain searches, handling mechanical work so humans can focus on the work that only humans can do. The research is still ours. The creative direction is still ours. The fact-checking happens with actual people and actual experts. When we get something wrong, and we do because we're human, those are our mistakes to own and correct. The soul of the work doesn't come from the model. That part has to come from somewhere real. Or it's just more slop with a nicer coat of paint. But here's the honest tension we sit with every day. Human-made work is expensive. It takes time. It takes sustained effort that doesn't compress well and doesn't get cheaper when you scale it. If AI-generated content continues absorbing the majority of human attention, and at current trajectory, it might, the economics stop working. The independent creators who refuse to cut corners get pushed out. Not by force, just by math. We don't want to adapt to that world. We'd rather help build a different one. The next AI that researches brown dwarfs will find a high-view video transcript. The invented facts will score high on relevance. They'll be folded into the next summary. The next video, the next article, the error has escaped the lab, and it is no longer traceable. That's not a hypothetical. That already happened. We watched it happen. And the only thing standing between that error and the permanent record of human knowledge was a group of people who cared enough to check. That's always been the answer. It's just a harder answer to fund than it used to be. So if you made it this far, thank you. Not for watching, for caring enough to want something real.